The fate of President Obama's health care legislation lies in the hands of the Supreme Court, and their decision could totally upend this race for the White House. What does it mean for President Obama and Governor Romney? And more importantly, what does it mean to you? Joining us now are New York Democratic Congressman Joe Crowley and top attorney Peter Johnson, Jr. Congressman, you're the top fundraiser for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, so this is a big issue for you.
I knew you'd get that in there.
And you're doing a good job from what I can see. You got 45 seconds. The Supreme Court's making its decision momentarily. What should they do? Everyone turn your dials to 50. And again, the more you agree, the higher you go. The more you disagree, the lower you go. Congressman?
Well, Frank, I think that the Supreme Court should rule that this law is constitutional, this is the first president in 100 years to actually accomplish something that they've all tried to do but failed at. And that has changed the direction of health care in this country, something that, if it was left to its own devices, would bankrupt our country. This law is going to provide for the first time that children who had pre-existing conditions can now not be denied their insurance when they have been denied in the past for a pre-existing condition. It now says that if you are up to 26 years of age, you can stay on your parents' insurance, giving your moms and dads a peace of mind knowing that their children at least covers. They think they're invincible. They're not. They can have accidents, and when they do, oftentimes the brunt of the share of the cost of that is the American taxpayer, because we have to pay for that. So I think this is a good bill, one that I think that the more the American people understand it, the more they like it, and they want to see this bill permanentized and remain in law.
How's it going to be paid for?
Well, how it's going to be paid for is that, one, it's going to reduce the cost of health care delivery.
So far.
Well, it's still early. It's not even fully implemented. This bill has not been fully implemented.
The good stuff is only right now, and the bad stuff's coming later.
Oh, no,
so it's not going to be less.
It's
going to be more
fact,
expensive.
Someone like yourself, if you as an adult have a pre-existing condition, you ultimately will not be denied coverage because of your pre-existing condition.
Let me hold on 1 second. I know this is controversial.
Fiscally, it's not
Peter, everybody go back to 50, please.
A lot of smart questions. We'll come back to those questions. But what we find out, the more we know, the more we don't like Obamacare. $500 billion in new taxes over the next 10 years. $500 billion cuts in Medicare over the next 10 years. $500 billion in new deficits in the next 10 years. That's the price of Obamacare. And it's also the price of our liberty in this country. If you listen to the Supreme Court arguments, the Supreme Court justices said, what's going on? Where's the end of this in terms of big government? What does the government tell us what to do next? Should we buy a cell phone? Should we eat broccoli? Should we do everything that the government tells us? Where does liberty begin? Where does the Commerce Clause end? And what's the future of America if we have to spend so much, get so little in return, and give away so many of our precious freedoms?
Okay.
That's what it's about.
Who's got the better argument? Who says the congressman? Raise your hands. Who says the lawyer? Raise your hands.
I want to go second next time.
So what's the issue? What do you want to know? What's the challenge? Go ahead.
The issue is the constitutionality, and it may be a great law. I mean, I would disagree, but if you agree that it's a great law, you still need it to be a constitutional law for it to pass. And so do you think that it's going to pass?
The Congress has the ability and the right to regulate commerce in this country and economic decisions that are made. Not purchasing health care is an economic decision, just as much as purchasing health care is. The other reality is that each and every person, I've got news to you, we are all going to grow old. And at some point, we will all need health care. It's not an option. It's a fact. We're all going to have it.
Go ahead.
Someone's saying they don't want to have it. It puts the responsibility on the rest of the taxpayers who pay for it right now.
What they're trying to do is say, listen, we can regulate everything. And when they asked about this at the Supreme Court, the government couldn't give a decision or an answer about where it ends. No end.
Was Social Security unconstitutional?
Yes.
Well, that's the premise then. Was Medicare unconstitutional?
Yes.
So therefore, was the Voting Rights Act unconstitutional? Well, some would suggest it was. I'm making the point that there are already things in place that the Supreme Court has already ruled that the lower court said were unconstitutional, that the Supreme Court later on said met the standard for
The
constitutional.
Supreme Court has never said that you can regulate inactivity. And that's what this law does, regulate inactivity.
This will give an opportunity for people to afford their own insurance so they can go into a primary care physician, which costs 10 times less, 10 times on an average, than
But none of the physicians are going to be existing. We're going to lose half our pool.
One at a time.
We're going to lose half the pool of our physicians with this catastrophe.
One at a time. One at a time.
Hard figures, hard numbers. 3 years out, what are we going to appreciate in terms of savings? Hard numbers. I don't want to hear about babies. I want to hear numbers. What are the projections?
And that's
3,
the last
5.
question.
Well, what I can say to you is this, that when this bill is fully implemented, the 9,000 businesses in my district in Bronx and Queens will now be able to afford to have health care for their constituents. It means that 160,000 people in my district who today cannot afford health insurance can buy health insurance. That's what this means.
Do you want to
it means
pay,
a savings.
let me ask
let
my
me
friends,
don't interrupt.
do you want to
it
pay
means a
new
savings.
penalties?
It means a savings
Do you want to
for
pay 17
the American
new taxes?
taxpayer. That's what this.
Is that what we want to do in this country? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, we gotta go. We gotta go. And I want to thank you all, and I want to remind you all that civility and decency is what we want from our politicians in Washington and what we want from our voters back home. I want to thank you for being with us for this special look at politics of 2012. Give yourselves a hand. Have a great weekend. Thank you.